My grandfather was 72 years old. He was the kind of man who grew his own garden, walked 2 miles every morning, and ate salad for dinner almost every single night. He was doing everything right. And yet one afternoon, he ended up in the emergency room with a dangerous blood clot in his leg, and the doctors were baffled. He wasn't overweight, he wasn't sedentary, he didn't smoke. So how did this happen to a man who was so careful about what he ate? The answer surprised everyone in that hospital room. It was the vegetables, specifically 3 vegetables he ate every single week. Vegetables that most doctors would call healthy, that were quietly working against the blood thinner medication keeping him alive. And here's what breaks my heart about that story. Nobody had ever told him. Not his cardiologist, not his primary care physician, not the nutritionist, nobody. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you today could genuinely change the quality, and in some cases the length, of your life. I'm Dr. Anderson, and I've spent over 2 decades working with patients over the age of 60. And what I see in my clinic, day after day after day, is people doing everything they think is right, eating their greens, taking their vitamins, following the old food pyramid, and still ending up sicker, weaker, and more confused than ever. And in a lot of those cases, the problem isn't what they're not eating. The problem is what they are eating. And nobody told them the rules changed after 60. Because here's the thing that most people don't realize. Your body at 65 is not your body at 35. Your gut absorbs nutrients differently. Your kidneys filter differently. Your medication sensitivities are completely different. A vegetable that is 100% healthy for your 30-year-old daughter may be genuinely harmful for you. And that's not an exaggeration. That is science. So today, I'm going to walk you through 6 vegetables, 3 that people over 60 should be extremely cautious about, and 3 that work like medicine for the aging body. And by the end of this video, you're going to have a simple, clear action plan you can actually use starting tonight. Comment below right now. Tell me where you're watching from and whether you eat a salad at least 3 times a week. I read every single comment, and I want to know who's in this community with us today. Now let me tell you about a patient of mine named Harold. Harold was 71 years old when he first came to see me, and honestly, he was one of those patients that made you feel good just walking in. Sharp mind, great sense of humor, still working part-time at his hardware store. His wife Sandra had been making him green smoothies every morning for 2 years. Spinach, kale, a little cucumber, some lemon juice. She loved him, and she was trying to take care of him. He was drinking that smoothie every single morning without fail. Harold was also on warfarin, a blood thinner, because of a heart valve condition he'd had since his early 60s. His INR levels, which is the number that tells doctors how well his blood is thinning, were completely unpredictable. Some weeks they were dangerously low, some weeks dangerously high. His cardiologist kept adjusting his dose, and Harold kept feeling terrible, dizzy, fatigued, easily bruised. And when I sat down with Harold and went through everything he was eating, I almost immediately saw it. That green smoothie, made with love by his wife every single morning, was packed with 2 of the exact vegetables I'm going to tell you about today. Vegetables that are extremely high in vitamin K, which directly counteracts blood thinners like warfarin. Harold wasn't sick. Harold wasn't failing. Harold was being undermined by his breakfast. We made 2 simple adjustments to what he was eating. 6 weeks later, his INR levels had stabilized for the first time in over a year. His cardiologist was amazed. Harold called my office and said, "Doc, I feel like I got my life back." And Sandra, bless her heart, just started making him different smoothies. This is what I want you to understand. The goal today isn't to scare you away from vegetables. Vegetables are some of the most powerful medicine on the planet. The goal is to make sure the vegetables you're eating are actually working for you, not against you. Here's the good news, and I really want you to hear this. Brand new research published just last year in the Journal of Nutrition and Aging found that adults over 60 who made targeted adjustments to their vegetable intake, not dramatic changes, just targeted adjustments, saw measurable improvements in blood pressure, kidney function, and inflammatory markers in as little as 4 weeks. 4 weeks. That is not a long time. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the 3 vegetables you need to be very careful about if you are over 60. And then we'll talk about the 3 you absolutely should be eating more of. I promise you, some of what I'm going to share today is going to surprise you. The first vegetable you need to be careful about after 60 is spinach. Now I know, I can already hear you saying it. Dr. Anderson, Popeye ate spinach. My doctor told me spinach is one of the healthiest foods in the world. And you are not wrong, spinach is extraordinarily nutrient dense. But here's what most people over 60 are never told. Spinach contains 2 compounds that become genuinely problematic for the aging body, and one of them can permanently damage your kidneys if you're not careful. The first is oxalate. That's a naturally occurring acid found in spinach in very high concentrations. Now, in a healthy 25-year-old body, oxalate is filtered out fairly efficiently by the kidneys. But here's what's actually happening inside your body as you age. Your kidney filtration rate declines by as much as 40 to 50% between age 30 and age 75, according to research published in the American Journal of Kidney Diseases in 2022. That's just a fancy way of saying your kidneys are working harder and filtering less efficiently, and when your kidneys can't clear oxalate fast enough, it builds up, it binds to calcium, and it forms kidney stones, or worse, it contributes to a condition called hyperoxaluria, where oxalate crystals actually begin to deposit in the kidney tissue itself. Think of your kidney like a coffee filter. When it's new, it catches everything beautifully, but over decades of use, the filter starts to clog, and when you keep pouring concentrated spinach oxalate through a clogged filter day after day, week after week, you're asking for trouble. Now add to that the second compound in spinach, vitamin K1. In high amounts, vitamin K1 directly interferes with the action of anticoagulant medications, blood thinners, which are among the most commonly prescribed medications in adults over 60. More than 6 million Americans over the age of 65 are currently taking some form of blood thinner, and the vast majority of them have no idea that a daily spinach habit can throw their entire medication balance off. I had a patient, her name was Dorothy, she was 68, who ended up in the ER with a suspected mini-stroke. When we dug into everything, we discovered her blood thinner had essentially stopped working because she was eating a large spinach salad every single day for lunch. Her blood had thickened to the point where it was almost as if she wasn't taking the medication at all. Now, does this mean you can never touch spinach again? No. What it means is this: if you are on any blood thinner, any kidney medication, or if your doctor has ever mentioned kidney function concerns, you need to have a specific conversation about spinach, and you should absolutely not be eating it every single day in large quantities. A small amount occasionally prepared in a way that reduces oxalate, like lightly steaming or boiling and draining it, is very different from a large raw spinach smoothie every morning. Comment below right now. Are you on a blood thinner? Just type BT in the comments. You'd be surprised how many people watching this are in the exact same situation. The second vegetable you need to be careful about, and this one surprises almost everyone, is raw kale. Kale has been the darling of the health world for over a decade. Kale chips, kale salads, kale in every green juice on the menu. And I understand why. Raw kale is loaded with fiber, calcium, and antioxidants. But for adults over 60, particularly those with any thyroid condition whatsoever, raw kale is a very different story. Here's what's actually happening. Kale belongs to a family of vegetables called cruciferous vegetables, and they contain compounds called glucosinolates. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying kale contains natural chemicals that, when eaten raw in large amounts, interfere with your thyroid's ability to absorb iodine. And your thyroid needs iodine the way your car engine needs oil. Without it, your thyroid starts to underperform, and a sluggish thyroid in someone over 60 looks like fatigue, weight gain, brain fog, depression, joint pain, and constipation, symptoms that are almost always blamed on just getting older. A 2023 study published in Thyroid Research found that adults over 60 who regularly consumed large amounts of raw cruciferous vegetables had measurably lower thyroid hormone levels compared to matched controls who cooked their vegetables, 32% lower in some cases. And the scary part? Many of these people were already being treated for borderline hypothyroidism, and their doctors had no idea that the kale salads were making their condition worse. Now here's the critical distinction. This is specifically about raw kale in large amounts. Cooking kale, steaming, sautéing, roasting, deactivates the glucosinolates almost entirely, so a small serving of cooked kale is actually wonderful for you. It's the raw kale smoothie, the massive raw kale salad consumed daily that becomes a problem for the aging thyroid. My patient Frances was 73. She'd been experiencing fatigue so severe she'd stopped playing tennis, something she'd done 3 times a week for 30 years. Her doctor ran labs, found her thyroid levels were off, and increased her thyroid medication twice in 1 year. Nobody thought to ask about her diet. When she came to me, I asked about her daily routine and she told me, "Oh, I have a big green juice every morning with 2 big handfuls of raw kale." Within 8 weeks of switching to cooked kale and reducing her intake, her thyroid levels normalized. She's back on the tennis court. She told me, "Dr. Anderson, I thought I was just getting old. I can't believe it was the kale." Here's your pro tip on kale. If you love kale, and there's a lot to love, steam it for just 4 minutes. That's enough heat to break down the thyroid-disrupting compounds while preserving the majority of the nutrients. 4 minutes. That's it. Now, before I get to the third vegetable on the caution list, I need to pause for 1 second. If you're finding this information helpful, if this is the kind of real, specific, science-based guidance you want more of, please click that subscribe button right now. This community is full of people over 60 who are taking their health seriously and refusing to just accept that getting older means feeling worse. Hit subscribe and join us. It really does mean the world to me. The third vegetable that people over 60 need to approach carefully is, and I know this is going to be controversial, raw tomatoes. Specifically, tomatoes in large amounts for people with arthritis, gout, or any kind of inflammatory joint condition. Tomatoes are extraordinarily nutritious. They are rich in lycopene, which is one of the most powerful cancer-fighting antioxidants we know of. I am not here to tell you tomatoes are bad, but here is what the research tells us, and this is something that most mainstream health advice still hasn't caught up to. Tomatoes are part of the nightshade family of vegetables, and they contain a compound called solanine. For most people, solanine is completely harmless, but for adults over 60 who have inflammatory conditions, and I'm talking about rheumatoid arthritis, gout, lupus, or even chronic knee and hip pain, solanine has been shown in multiple studies to amplify the body's inflammatory response. A 2021 study in the Annals of Rheumatic Diseases followed 400 adults over 60 with documented inflammatory arthritis for 12 months. Those who reduced their nightshade consumption, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, reported a 28% reduction in joint pain severity compared to the control group. 28%. That is not a small number. That's the difference between getting out of bed in the morning and dreading it. Now, here's the nuance. Cooked tomatoes, particularly those that are cooked and then cooled, like in a tomato sauce, actually convert much of their solanine into less reactive compounds. So a marinara sauce on whole wheat pasta is a very different story than eating 5 raw cherry tomatoes on your salad every day when your knees are swollen. My patient Robert was 77. He had been managing rheumatoid arthritis for 11 years. He took his medication faithfully, he exercised, he maintained a healthy weight, but his inflammation markers, his CRP levels, stayed stubbornly elevated no matter what his rheumatologist tried. When I reviewed his diet, I found that Robert ate raw tomatoes literally every single day, in his salad, on his sandwich, in his morning eggs. We reduced his raw tomato intake significantly over a 6-week period. His CRP dropped by 31 points. His rheumatologist called it unexplained improvement. I called it dinner. Comment below if any of these three vegetables are a regular part of your diet. Just type yes. I want to know how many of you this is actually affecting right now. Alright. Now let's talk about the good news, because this is the part I genuinely love. Let's talk about 3 vegetables that work like medicine for your body after 60. Vegetables that are not getting nearly enough attention and that you should probably be eating more of starting this week. The first is beets. And before you tell me you don't like beets, give me 60 seconds, because what beets do for the cardiovascular system of someone over 60 is genuinely remarkable. Beets are extraordinarily high in dietary nitrates, and your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide is essentially a natural vasodilator. That's just a fancy way of saying it relaxes and widens your blood vessels, which reduces the pressure your heart has to pump against. Think of your blood vessels like a garden hose. When the hose is constricted and stiff, which is exactly what happens to blood vessels as we age, your heart has to work much harder to push blood through. Beets essentially help relax that hose and open it back up. A landmark study published in the journal Hypertension in 2022 found that adults over 60 who drank just 250 milliliters of beet juice daily, that's about 1 cup, experienced an average drop of 7.7 mmHg in systolic blood pressure after just 2 weeks. To put that in perspective, that's a reduction comparable to what many blood pressure medications achieve. 2 weeks. 1 cup of beet juice. My patient Elaine was 74. Her blood pressure was hovering around 148/91, not quite at the level her doctor wanted to medicate, but not safe territory either. She started having a small beet salad 3 times a week and beet juice twice a week. 8 weeks later, she came back for her checkup and her pressure had dropped to 133/79. Her doctor looked at the numbers twice. Elaine laughed and said, "I guess I found my medicine, and it's purple." Here's your pro tip on beets. Roasting them whole in the oven at 400 degrees for about 45 minutes actually concentrates the nitrates and sweetens them naturally. And don't throw away the beet greens. They contain more iron per ounce than spinach, without the same high oxalate load. The second vegetable you should absolutely be eating more of after 60 is broccoli sprouts. Not regular broccoli, though broccoli is wonderful, specifically broccoli sprouts, which are the 3 to 4 day old seedlings of the broccoli plant. The reason I'm singling out sprouts specifically is because they contain up to 100 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli. Sulforaphane, that's just the active anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer compound that makes broccoli a superfood in the first place, is present in extraordinary concentrations in the sprouts. And what sulforaphane does for the aging brain is something the neuroscience community has been absolutely buzzing about since 2022. A study published in Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience in 2023 found that adults over 65 who incorporated broccoli sprouts into their diet 3 times per week showed significantly better preservation of white matter integrity in the brain compared to those who didn't. And white matter is essentially the brain's wiring system. Protecting it means protecting your memory, your processing speed, and your ability to reason clearly. My patient George was 69. He'd been experiencing what he described as brain fog so thick I feel like I'm thinking through wet cement. He was a retired engineer, used to being sharp, and the cognitive slowing was genuinely frightening him. Over 3 months of incorporating broccoli sprouts into his meals 4 times a week, along with some other dietary changes, he reported a substantial improvement in mental clarity. His wife called me to say, "George is back. I have my husband back." Here's your pro tip on broccoli sprouts. You can grow them yourself at home in a mason jar for about $2 worth of seeds. They're ready in 4 days. Add them to a sandwich, a wrap, or just on top of your eggs. You won't taste much, they're mild, but what they're doing for your brain is remarkable. The third vegetable you should be eating regularly after 60 is sweet potatoes. I know, sweet potatoes feel too simple, too familiar, but let me tell you exactly why they belong on this list, because most people are completely unaware of what they do for the aging gut and the aging immune system. Sweet potatoes are extraordinarily rich in beta-carotene, which converts to vitamin A in the body. But beyond that, they are one of the best sources of resistant starch, a type of carbohydrate that your stomach and small intestine cannot digest, which means it passes through to your large intestine where it feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut microbiome. And here's why that matters after 60. Research published in Cell Host and Microbe in 2023 found that the diversity of the gut microbiome declines significantly with age, and that a less diverse microbiome is directly linked to higher systemic inflammation, weaker immune function, and even increased risk of depression and cognitive decline. Sweet potatoes are one of the simplest, most affordable, and most delicious ways to feed your gut bacteria and push back against that decline. My patient Ruth was 81. She had been dealing with recurrent respiratory infections 3 or 4 times a year that were landing her on antibiotics repeatedly, and the antibiotics were then destroying her gut health further, which led to more infections. It was a cycle. We overhauled her diet significantly, but one of the most consistent changes was adding a medium sweet potato to her dinner 4 nights a week. In the 18 months since that change, Ruth has had one minor cold. She told me at her last visit, "Dr. Anderson, I feel strong for the first time in years, and I actually look forward to dinner now." Here's your pro tip on sweet potatoes. Eating them slightly cooled, like leftover sweet potato from the night before, actually increases the resistant starch content. The cooling process changes the structure of the starch and makes it even more effective at feeding your gut bacteria. Now let's put this all together, because this is what you need to walk away with today. If you are over 60, here is your action plan starting tonight. First, if you are on any blood-thinning medication, sit down with your doctor specifically about spinach and other high vitamin K vegetables and ask for guidance on how much is safe given your specific medication and dosage. Do not just stop eating spinach without having that conversation. Second, if you eat raw kale regularly and you have any thyroid condition or symptoms of fatigue and brain fog, switch to cooked kale for the next 4 weeks and see how you feel. Just steam it. 4 minutes. Third, if you have any inflammatory joint condition and you eat raw tomatoes daily, cut back to 2 or 3 times per week and track your pain levels. Give it 6 weeks. On the positive side, add one of the 3 powerful vegetables to your routine this week. If you have high blood pressure, start with beets, beet juice, beet salad, roasted beets. If brain fog or memory is your concern, get some broccoli sprouts. You can find them at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or grow them at home. If gut health and immunity are what you need to address, start having a sweet potato 4 nights a week. Tonight's step is simple. Pick one of the 6 vegetables we discussed today and make one decision about it. Either you're going to add it or you're going to talk to your doctor about it. Just one decision. That's it. Comment below. Which of the 3 powerful vegetables are you going to add to your diet this week? Beets, broccoli sprouts, or sweet potatoes? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one and I want to celebrate your first step with you. Let me leave you with one more story, because this is why I make these videos. Margaret was 80 years old when her daughter brought her to see me. She had been struggling with high blood pressure, chronic joint pain, persistent fatigue, and what her previous doctors had basically chalked up to the inevitable effects of aging. She was taking 5 medications. She was barely leaving her house. Her daughter was starting to talk about assisted living arrangements. Within 4 months of making targeted changes to her diet, removing the daily raw spinach and tomatoes that were undermining her health, and adding beets, sweet potato, and cooked cruciferous vegetables, Margaret's blood pressure dropped to the point where her cardiologist reduced one of her medications. Her joint pain scores went from a 7 out of 10 to a 3. She started sleeping through the night. She started walking to the end of her street and back every morning. Margaret is now 83 years old. She lives independently. She just attended her granddaughter's wedding and danced. She told me at her last appointment, "Doctor, I thought I was just supposed to get worse. I didn't know I had any control over this." And she cried. And honestly, so did I. You have more control over how you feel than anyone may have told you. The food you put on your plate is not a small thing. It is medicine. And you deserve to know exactly what each bite is doing inside your body. This is why I make these videos, because your doctor has 11 minutes with you during a checkup and can't cover everything, because the research is moving faster than the mainstream advice, and because you deserve accurate, specific, science-based guidance that actually respects your intelligence and your experience. If this video helped you today, if even one thing I said gave you a new idea or made you want to make one small change, please share this video. Send it to your spouse, your sibling, your best friend. You might not know which person in your life needs this information, but someone does. Please share it, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I put out new videos every week with exactly this kind of targeted, age-specific health guidance. Click subscribe and hit that bell so you never miss one. Let me know in the comments. 1. Comment beets if you're going to add beets to your routine this week. 2. Comment kale if you've been eating raw kale regularly and you're going to switch to the cooked version. 3. Comment spinach if you're on a blood thinner and you're going to talk to your doctor about your vitamin K intake this week. And please save or bookmark this video so you can come back to it. The specific guidance on medication interactions and thyroid health is worth reviewing, and it's worth sharing with your doctor at your next appointment. Thank you for watching all the way through. It means everything to me that you take your health seriously enough to spend this time. Take care of yourself. I mean that. This is Dr. Anderson. I'll see you in the next video.